Professor Mike Adams was an outspoken conservative and also a professor at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. He was a professor of criminology, which most of us would just refer to as criminal justice. Anyway, he was just found dead in his home of an apparent suicide. Police say that he died of a gunshot and that there were no signs of foul play. He was known for really opinionated, frankly impressive pieces. Like I said, he was a conservative. He wrote columns at the Daily Wire and also at Town Hall, which are both conservative publications. So, Dr. Adams has had a long habit of essentially getting leftist ire. Back in May, on May 28th, he tweeted, and I quote, "Don't shut down the universities, shut down the non-essential majors, like women's studies," unquote. And I couldn't agree more. Of course, this got all the leftists riled up, and he was surrounded by leftists because, again, he was a college professor, and that's their environment, right? But the very next day, undeterred, he tweeted again. He said, quote, "This evening, I ate pizza and drank beer with 6 guys at a 6-seat tabletop. I almost felt like a free man who was not living in the slave state of North Carolina. Massa Cooper, let my people go," unquote. And of course that's a reference to the fact that our governor, Roy Cooper, has decided that he has essentially unlimited powers to determine how many people can gather together, where they can eat, what they can eat, whether or not they have to wear masks, etc. Our governor is a Democrat and also tyrannical, and there's a lot of overlap there at this point. Dr. Adams also is known for referring to the rioters as thugs. I wasn't aware that this was a controversial statement, but apparently somehow it is. I've seen news sources refer to the rioters as, and I quote, "civil rights activists." I mean, that's just so extreme, I just don't even know what to say to that. In any case, Dr. Adams was supposed to retire on August 1st because the university has been trying to force him out for some time. Really, at this point, they paid him $500,000 to just go away because he had tenure, and so they're just like, "Oh, we don't want you." And by the way, they tried to prevent him from getting tenure. He had the merits to get tenure. This is a public university, public college, and he had to sue them like several years ago to get tenure. Eventually they had to give it to him, and now they're just trying to force him out. They knew that this day was coming. They knew that they wanted to force him out eventually. And so he agreed to resign for what it was, $500,000. But not without a lot of screaming from those on the left, from faculty, from students, and just from random online people who decided that they thought that he should be silenced and forced out of his job, basically. But since his passing, he's been referred to online as racist, sexist, homophobic, the usual, tripe. These people have no basic decency, not enough to even, respect the dead. I mean, really, that seems like a minimum to me. And now, those on the left are celebrating his death, while criticizing Dr. Adams for not being tolerant of others. Seriously, the irony is palpable at this point. Dr. Adams was such a bad guy because he wasn't tolerant of all this different garbage. They're not tolerant of just him having alternative ideas. The least amount of tolerance. But speaking of tolerance, I came across a statement recently by an anonymous Black Lives Matter supporter explaining essentially how cancel culture works from their perspective, and I think it's important. Now, I get this is just one guy, but over 400,000 people liked this statement, essentially endorsed his statement, so that's why I think it's relevant. Let me go ahead and show it to you. He said, quote, "When you expose a racist student, you stop them from attending a university that will allow them to become a racist healthcare worker, teacher, lawyer, real estate developer, politicians, etc." Unquote. Now, again, he said this behind an anonymous account, so that he can't be held accountable for what he says. You'll notice he doesn't use his full name because that would be horrendous if he had to, face repercussions for something that he said, unlike everybody else that he wants to harass for the rest of their lives for some statement, for example. But anyway, that's their methodology in his words, in their words. Of course it's about thought control, but more than that, they admit that when they get someone kicked out of school, as in his example, they're attempting to get the person marked for life, making it difficult for that person to get a decent job thereafter, essentially driving them into Siberia. He's requiring the person perhaps to starve, maybe, mean, you're preventing him from getting a decent job, so who knows? And he doesn't seem to care. This is all for a person having the wrong opinion. With no due process, just exiled by the leftist mob, and moreover, no redeemability. Like, for example, if the person was, had some egregious opinions and then changed later on in life, as many people do, there's no redemption for anybody in this leftist mantra. It's just the person's life is destroyed. But that destruction of life is not accidental, as explained by them. It's evil. And it's completely intentional. What he didn't mention was the psychological impact that it has on the person who is kicked out, whether it's of college or of a job, a career, and so on. There's a psychological impact of being essentially exiled by what seem to be your peers, your friends. In some cases, what might seem like society itself has rejected you. Even if you know that you didn't do or say anything wrong, it still has an impact on your sense of self-worth. And I think they know this too. None of it seems to be accidental. When you see these remarks like this, they are intentionally trying to destroy people's lives, not trying to reform them in some way or change their minds. They're not interested in that. They're interested in destruction. And when it comes to Dr. Adams, they were also interested in his destruction. They were interested in trying to remove him from his career, but also in trying to slander him. They're still trying to slander him even after his death. If that tells you what kind of environment he had to live in, what he had to basically deal with constantly. And again, he was in the educational system, in academia, which is where the leftists can basically run rampant at their most extreme. So I'm sure it was a horrendous environment. But the censorship in academia is alive and well. I mean, I explained it in regards to his tenure already. But imagine if it's that bad for a professor, what would it be like now going through as a student going through college? We know how bad it is. We know what they teach in colleges. Don't send your kids to those places. Really, don't. Because they're just destructive and they don't teach anything of value anymore. What they teach is horrendous, but worse than that, it's all untrue. I mean, they're literally teaching lies at this point. Wait, if you enjoyed that video, please remember to like and share. I can't grow without you. Also, if you want to be reliably notified of new videos, don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter. If you're able to support the production of these videos, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe at Subscribestar, or maybe get one of the healthier products, or even get some merch.